Very good evening, all of you. So let's discuss about the speaking test today, mainly conducted by the Cambridge. Okay, it can be in the form of the O-level speaking endorsement examinations or the IELTS or any other competitive speaking assessment done by Cambridge. So in these examinations, actually it must be a face-to-face interaction, I would say, or a discussion with the examiner. So you have to take it in that way. It is an informal discussion or interaction with the examiner. See, we are not there in a quiz competition where there are right and wrong answers. So that itself can really make us feel chilled, right? We are supposed to be like that, not nervous, because there are no wrong and correct answers. You just have to express your opinion, your thoughts, and maybe some facts as well. Okay, so this is something that we should be really, uh, I mean, clarified about. Now, the test, of course, in all the assessments, okay, in all the speaking assessments, you can see the test is divided into three sections. And actually, why, what is being assessed here? Okay, that is something that you should be aware of, because all of us know somewhat to communicate in English. But what are they looking forward? What do they want us to do in the speaking test? How are we assessed in the speaking test? We should be aware of that. Actually, the test is designed to test your pronunciation, fluency, grammar, and vocabulary. Pronunciation in the sense that I think yesterday I have mentioned in one of the other posts. It's English right now is a globally uh, accepted language, right? So uh, as it is a globally accepted language, the pronunciation, right, it differs from countries to country, maybe state to state, everywhere. It's possible. Okay, that diversification is excused, but still, we have to do a little bit of justice to the language, right? So that is what they will be looking forward to in the pronunciation section. They are not trying, they're not looking to see you talking as a native speaker. They don't expect that from your end. But on the other hand, what you have to do is you have to do a bit of justice to the language. I think the point is clear. And um, knowing the criteria, now I have revealed the criteria right in the beginning. So knowing the criteria will help you to, practice in or to improve your skills in that way. Now, there are many students, they try hard, they may be listening, they may be practicing with their friends, and in spite of all these hard work, they don't get a band that they expect. They are very confident speakers, but what happened is they are not aware of the criteria on the basis of how they are being judged. That's why I said that is very important. Now, the four criteria is the first comes the fluency and coherence. Then comes the lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and then comes the pronunciation. The last but the least, okay, it comes the pronunciation. Now, when you talk about fluency and coherence, so some of the students, they'll be like very, um, I mean, they will think that fluency means that you have to speak very fast without a pause, without even taking a breath. That is not what is being expected. And if you have listened, of course, in these competitive examination, you have to go through the listening test as well, right? So you must have listened to so many tracks. You must have identified that in all those tracks, they're not going so fast. Okay, it's normal for them to take pauses, but unnatural pauses in between, that is not acceptable. If they ask you some question, you start and then you are like blank, then that means what? You are not able to express your views fluently. So that is what you mean by the fluency. Okay, it's not that how fast you can, it's not a running race competition, but you have to go slow, express your ideas, but at the same time, don't take unnatural breaks in between. You can have pauses, no problem. Now, that is your by fluency, it refers to your ability to speak smoothly and at an appropriate speed without any unnatural pauses. And then next comes, I told you about, first I told you fluency, then comes coherence. What do you mean by coherence? It means being logical and consistent. What do you mean by logical? See, when the examiner passes a question to you, you are expected to answer to the question, not something else. Okay? And when you, I mean, when you explain it, when you start speaking, you have to explain it. If you say a stand, you must be able to connect it together using discourse markers and tenses. That shows your language skill. Now, when I use these words, discourse markers, you will be like, oh, what is that? They are simply linkers, or in other words, cohesive devices. We use this word on top of that, right? And maybe for examples and all, we go for instance. These kinds of linkers are always welcome in both the writing section as well as in the speaking section. But furthermore, in addition to that, these linkers are mostly appearing in your writing tasks rather than in your speaking tasks. And when it comes in speaking tasks, it will not look so natural, because we don't normally speak with these linkers. But on the other hand, linkers like on top of that. Okay, for instance, when you give examples, for all these explanations, elaborations can be done, and the ideas must be connected. So that is what is meant by fluency and coherence. That is meant by coherence. So fluency, I told you first. This is coherence. That is being logical and consistent. And discourse markers, as I told you, you have to use discourse markers to connect your ideas together. Then what happens is, you like, oh, if I use more discourse markers, maybe I'll get a better brand, 8 and 9. It's not like that. Again, too much of anything is poison, right? So use it appropriately, and don't use a linker just for the namesake. That also is not welcoming. Okay? The most common problem is the overuse of discourse markers and using them inappropriately. That should be checked. Now, again, the third point that I have mentioned is about the lexical resource. Lexical resource, of course, means your vocabulary stock. This cannot be attained in a day or 2 months or 3 months. This is something that you must have already had some vocabulary stock, and you can just polish it. That is how you appear for the speaking examination. And just like I talked about the linkers, in the lexical resource also, make sure that you are not using vocabulary for its namesake. Okay, use vocabulary in the correct context, appropriately. Not don't think that bombastic words will get me a great score. It will never do it, because maybe you are using this bombastic word in an inappropriate situation, without seeing the context, without knowing its relevance according to the context. So you should be very careful about using these words. It's better for you to use normal words that you always use for communication purposes, so that you can use it in the correct way, and you are also very confident to use it. Otherwise, you will also not be very confident, but you're just using it for the namesake, just thinking that under the assumption that you will be getting a better score. Maybe it's not so. Unfortunately, you have to use words accurately or you will lose marks. Okay? And the next one is the grammatical range and accuracy. That is very important, especially as I told in the yesterday's post, the same thing, subject verb agreement. That is very important. That's where normally we go wrong when you speak. The normal communication, it can be excused, but when it comes to a test, you must be very careful about it. Okay, and mm, enough range of grammar, that is, in case if you are using it, it is well and good. Okay, if you can frame different kinds of sentences, a sentence pattern, just like in writing tasks, if you can change the pattern of sentences every now and then, just like in vocabulary also, avoid when we talk about the lexical resource, if you have a sound vocabulary stock, you will avoid repetition of words. You can go for different synonyms of the same word. That will be really attractive and that can enhance your band. Now, tenses also, maybe in one question itself, he will be, see, one pattern of question he may ask about the present, then he may go to the future and past and all. So your tenses, not only your tenses, not only the structure, but also, you must be aware of the different types of functional languages also. That's why I said the grammatical range and accuracy is to be checked. And regarding the pronunciation, you don't have to be worry about the American or British accent. Okay, it is acceptable, as I told you, but do justice to the language when it comes to pronunciation of words. And then if see, during the examination, if you don't understand a word, don't worry, you can ask the examiner, but don't do that like how we do normally. Don't do that. Okay, you just say sorry, can you repeat. He will be ready to repeat it, he or she, whoever it is, the examiner will be ready to repeat it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Then you are not expected to give an yes or no question. Do you like games? No. And you don't sit idle. So how you see, in case if you do that, how do you expect the examiner to judge you? That's very bad, right? Don't do that. You have to develop on that. So in a speaking test, always remember that there are no short answers. Means in the first part of the section, okay, of course, 1 or 2 sentences at least you have to say. Then only the examiner will get a chance to assess you. Okay, keep that in mind. Don't make the examiner feel helpless, and he won't be able to support you also. In case if you start speaking also, only he also will be able to support you in one way or another. Don't think that by giving very short answers I'm being too smart. No, it's not the case. Now, as I think the test is divided into 3 sections. The first is about you, part you, about your hobbies, your family background, your job, your studies, everything about you. And in the second section, you have the cue card section. It's 3 to 4 minutes it will last. The cue card will be given to you. You can just, you can even make notes about it and then speak about it. And the last comes at section 3, where it is based on the listening part 2 section, but mostly abstract. And here is the section 3 is the part where you can really elaborate, where the real you can come out, where you can express, where you can demonstrate all your language skill. Now students, my dear students, you have to understand one thing. Whether the examination lasts for 6 or 7 minutes only, see, that is the only time where you can exhibit your language skill. After the examination, you can't call the examiner and tell him that this grammar, that vocabulary, this is really invalid and no use. Okay, so make sure that when you get the time, you really demonstrate your language skill appropriately. Thank you, and please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. Bye. Take care.